Okay, so talking about Cam Ward, I do think he's great. I do think with the injury to Travis Ward, and I expect the Boise running back to maybe cool a little bit. Like I don't know if his stats can stay as insane as they've been at 10 yards a pop, but maybe they will, and maybe he'll find a way to win. I think Cam has a great chance to win it. Now, if they lose a game, maybe not, but he'll be there either way. Like they could lose this game and they win their next five, and they'll be fine. He'll still go. He might not win it if they lose this game as a 21-point favorite at home, but Cam's got a great chance to win it. Somebody asked me this, and I want to get your take on it. They asked me what I was most concerned about as a Florida State fan, and my joking answer was, well, I'm concerned that we're getting on the flight and having to go down there and play the game. But I'm actually more concerned about, and this is no shot at Cam Ward, to any Miami fans that'll maybe watch this later and get in the comments. So like, I'll try and explain this so that I don't offend people, which people just live to be offended on the internet, so who cares? I'm actually less worried about Cam Ward because I do have some faith in our defense. Not like last year faith in defense, but I have some faith in our defense. I think we're the best defense they've played so far. And so I'm actually less worried about Cam Ward in this game and more worried about their defensive line, which I also think is top 5 in the country. And I have more faith in our defense than I do our offensive line or our quarterbacks to recognize the pressures or get out of the pressures. And so Cam Ward is not even really what worries me the most in this game. No, he still worries me a ton. He's still the best quarterback in college football so far this year. But my bigger concern is their defensive front versus our offensive front. Am I crazy for that, Richie? For not saying that the Heisman quarterback is my biggest worry here?
I don't think so because you got to look at the defense has been solid. They're obviously not last year, and I think what worries me about that is the 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8. 'Cause that's when Cam Ward is at his best. Even if you get to him, he's been a Houdini act, just escaping people and making plays, extending plays. I think that definitely worries me on a down-to-down basis. Ward is probably not my biggest worry just because of how bad the offense is and how do you manufacture points. You're not going to have a 12-play, 75-yard drive. It's just extremely unlikely. And, you know, Miami's defensive line is far better than what Duke has. And while I do think we had more time than it looked like in real time watching the game against Duke, um, I just think you have young quarterbacks who don't know how to process a defense quickly enough. But I think a guy like Ruben Bain, who currently leads the nation in QB pressures, um, you know, with Darius Washington out, is he going to have a field day? I think he will. I
Yeah.
think he's going to have to get creative on how he calls this game offensively. But with the personnel you have, like how creative can you really get? You got to pray for a 2018 type play on the double pass that eventually got called back. But when Florida State was in command of the game down in Hard Rock Stadium, and Miami came back to win, I just think I just see no hope offensively, and to win the game. And this is crazy talk right now. Just the thought of to win the game, your offense is going to need more than 0 offensive touchdowns like they had against.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, it would be like it wouldn't surprise me if Florida State held Miami, and I'm not predicting this, and we'll do score predictions later, but like it wouldn't shock me if Florida State held Miami to like 31 points in this game.
Yeah.
Now, with a competent offense that could like move the ball a little bit and use some clock. My worry is that we give Miami like 14 possessions and that allows them to score more. But if our offense could be like if you could count on your offense to score 24 points, like just be a below average offense and score, what would that be? 24 points is what, 5 times you kick a couple field goals. That would make me feel like, okay, well, you're going to have the ball long enough to where maybe my only scores like 31, 38, 35, somewhere in that range. It's hard for me to really see Florida State's offense getting above 17 in this game. First of all, they haven't done that again in America. And so it's hard for me to think that they're all of a sudden just going to go down to Hard Rock and score more than they've scored all year. And then again, if you look at that Georgia Tech game, you had the really nice scripted drive to start, and then you really only scored 14 points in that game past the scripted drive, right? Yeah. And so to me, I'm not super worried about Miami's offense just killing us outside of the fact that they're going to have a million possessions, I would assume.
Mhm.
I'm worried about our offense being able to put up any points at all. Like if Florida State's offense beats their yearly total of 21, I mean, I'd be shocked. I would absolutely be shocked. And you're right. You're going to need things like a punt return touchdown, which you got in 2018, or a kick return touchdown, which you got last week. And Miami gave up a kick return touchdown. So, like, there are, weird things happen in rivalry games. I mean, we've had punt return and kick return touchdowns against this team before. It's not like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you do something crazy. But yeah, you're going to need a trick play to work. You're going to need a 50-yard bomb to be, caught in the end zone. You're going to need some kind of dynamic, you're probably going to need Cam to throw you a couple of picks. You're probably going to need one of those picks to go back for a touchdown, because if it doesn't, are you confident in the offense getting the ball in the end zone? And so, yeah, to me, that's kind of my worry. And so Cam's really great, but it's kind of wild that he's the best player, one of the best players in college football, if not the best, this year. And he's not even really what I'm the most worried about. That's how bad the offense is.
You talk about the anatomy of an upset, right? To your point, you need a big special teams play. Can you block a punt when you do get a 3-and-out? Because I do think Florida State gets 1 or 2 3-and-outs. The defense, again, the team is just so bad. I think people are thinking the defense is worse than it actually has been, and they're not great. They're not world beaters, but they're good enough to hold Miami in check on a few possessions. That won't last the entire game. And it gets really annoying when you have a 3-and-out or, a 5-play possession and you get off the field and give your offense decent field possession. And then they give you a 3-and-out and, you get literally 10 minutes of real time just to rest. And then you're right back out on the field, so you need to have a big special teams play or two. You need to get lucky on turnovers. If you win the turnover battle 4-0, like Duke did last week, okay, now you have a chance I don't think either of us are going to pick Florida State to win, but that's the one thing about college football is that you see upsets like this more regularly now than you used to. I think the first big one I remember was USC, and I might have been in high school at the time. They were 41.5-point favorites over Stanford, and Stanford beat them. Yeah. And that happens more and more regularly. You talk about App State over Michigan in 2007, and it seems like more than just 1 or 2 a year these days. But how many of those come in rivalry games where the head coach for your opposing team played in this rivalry? Like, this rivalry is in his blood, and if there's an opportunity for him to hang 50, 60 points, he is going to do it, possibly to the detriment of maybe getting some of his players hurt, which I certainly hope does not happen. But he's going to leave his starters in longer than he would if this was against Georgia Tech or Duke or, Stanford or any other ACC school. This game, he remembers 2 years ago when Mike went in there and won that game 45-3. And Mike did kind of run up the score a little bit there, which I think was a smart move. And I think in rivalry games, you should always run the score up if you can. It's different when it's another conference team or, you're not going to run it up against a Charleston Southern intentionally unless it's with your third stringers. But I could see Mario saying, this is a huge opportunity. I saw a tweet that Miami's going to have something like 130 recruits and 80 plus blue chips at the game. Yeah. He is not going to waste that opportunity. And this is a huge game for Mike. He does not need to win it. This season is done. And no FSU fan will be happy with him, even if they run at the table and win the bowl game. The damage is done. Just the start to the season and the loss to Duke, the damage is done. There's no salvaging this season whatsoever. But I think it is important for Mike to try and keep it as close as possible. And my fear is I'd almost rather get blown out than him play, just to keep it close and overly conservative. Go for broke. Try and knock him off. Why not?